Today's story comes from the relationships subreddit and was posted by Stadio Disbelief and was titled My 35 Male, Wife 31 Female, Had My Sister-in-Law 33 Female Deported. I had to come on here and get some kind of outside perspective because currently no one else in the family knows that the reason my sister-in-law is being deported is because of my wife. Not sure I should out her either in my current state of mind. Sorry if this is long or disorganized. My mind is currently in chaos. Background. We have been together for 8 years, no kids. Basically, all of this began when my brother and sister-in-law moved back to our home country after he had been living in my sister-in-law's country. Prior to that, my wife Emma didn't have an issue with my sister-in-law. My wife and sister-in-law are both from the States, but my wife has been living with me in my home country since we got married. My brother and sister-in-law are what some people might call free-spirited. My sister-in-law is from Portland, something my wife rolls her eyes at, and is very hipster. They both smoke regularly, something I don't have an issue with, but don't feel like getting involved with either. My wife has no issues with drugs or drug use, but she can't stand how much my brother and sister-in-law talk about pot whenever we see them. 6 months ago, my wife decided to finish her master's degree and was offered an opportunity to do a semester abroad. Coinciding with that time, my brother and sister-in-law moved back here permanently. However, from what I understand, my sister-in-law is technically still on a tourist visa, which has expired by now since they came in February, and I'm not really sure what was going on with the whole paperwork process. They seem to be bad at planning. My sister-in-law has mentioned before that she wants to have a kid with my brother because she would not only get paid maternity leave here, but it would cement her staying. She told my wife this over Facebook messages as well. When my wife left to do her semester abroad, and my brother and sister-in-law moved in, we hung out a lot more. At first, my wife was cool with it and would say hi, etc. But things changed when my brother and sister-in-law invited me on a road trip to Sweden, something that my wife has always wanted to do with me, but we never got around to. After that, she would become short in her answers whenever I said I was hanging out with them. She began to make subtle comments about my sister-in-law, and the more I saw them, the more vicious the comments got. As a result, I didn't go out with my brother so much when I knew my sister-in-law would be there. I love my brother, but honestly, he takes a lot of energy to be around, so it's not something I really minded too much. However, things came to a head when both my sister-in-law and my wife entered the same photo competition. My wife entered first, and then my sister-in-law saw her post and entered 2 days after. Then she and my sister-in-law engaged in pretty childish, subtle Facebook statuses about each other, always masked as someone or this person. My wife was pissed, and I took the opportunity to ask her what was going on between her and my sister-in-law. She basically told me that she resented how my sister-in-law got to see me all the time now and how she feels inadequate compared to her because my sister-in-law does all the cooking, although it's mostly those minimalist dishes people make for Instagram and not very appetizing for me, and I'm the one who cooks in our marriage. My sister-in-law is also Asian, and I made the mistake of telling my wife that I had had a thing for Asian girls back when I was 20 and everything Japanese was all trendy. She was also upset that I had gone to my brother and sister-in-law's wedding without her, while she had been abroad during her bachelor's degree. She also is afraid that I'm going to start smoking again because of them. I told her it was not something I was interested in because pot mostly makes me paranoid and depressed. She also brought up that she hates how I will talk shit about my brother and sister-in-law, mostly about their need to constantly talk about smoking and some of their very out there ideas about things, but act perfectly fine to their faces. She said she feels like I'm placating her by saying my sister-in-law is annoying, but I still go see her. She said it makes her feel like I will lie to fit the situation, and that bothers her. Well, I hadn't seen my brother's sister-in-law for a few weeks now, and my wife and I were back to normal. She came home, and we were having a good time, seeing all our other friends. She didn't even bat an eyelash when I said some of the guys had invited me out for a guy's night. All was good. Then last week my brother called and asked me if I wanted to hang out. He sounded pretty high, and I told him no. Emma casually asked what was up, and I told her. She got a bit quiet, then shrugged and went back to doing whatever. About 10 minutes afterwards, she said she was going to take the dog for a walk and run to the shop to get some vegetables for dinner. This is basically what went down. She went outside, called the police anonymously, and said that she was a concerned neighbor and could smell marijuana coming from my brother's flat. The police came. My brother and sister-in-law were arrested and fined. However, when they went to pull up my sister-in-law's profile to record the incident, they discovered her expired tourist visa. She had to be transferred to a sort of holding facility for people who are in queue for being deported. Now, there's a whole shitstorm happening. My brother is beyond upset, and the family is shocked. This isn't really something that can be worked around as, 1, marijuana is illegal in this country, and 2, she was on expired visa and they didn't file the correct paperwork for her to live here legally. So if she is deported, she may face a 5 to 10-year ban. This means either the end of their marriage or my brother will need to figure out how to move to the United States with her. The thing is, no one knows it was my wife except me, and she doesn't even sound the least bit remorseful. We had a huge row about it, and she stood by her decision, saying that if my sister-in-law was that stupid to do illegal drugs as well as not have her papers in order, then it was on her. If I'm being honest, I don't care so much about my sister-in-law being deported, but I care that my wife felt so threatened by her that she went to this length. She's the type to make subtle remarks and be frosty, but she has never done anything close to this before. So now I'm in a real bind. I really don't know what to do. I definitely cannot tell the family, and I don't really feel the obligation to anyway. I'm not close with my mom because she left me as a kid, and I don't talk to any of my relatives really except my dad and brother. But I cannot just let this slide. I need to impress upon her that she has potentially ruined a marriage all in an effort to remove someone she finds annoying from our lives. Someone we don't even have to see every day. What advice can you guys give me? There's no one else I can even talk to about this. Relevant comments. Commenter 1 says, she completely violated your trust. She knew what she was going to do, but she lied to you about going to the store instead because she knew you tried to stop her. That means she knew what she was doing was wrong. She also got your brother arrested. At the very least, she needs to come clean with your family, sister-in-law included, and apologize. Let her face the consequences for her actions. Maybe she'll learn something. Hope replied, yeah, I feel at fault for giving her the information about this. I shouldn't have said anything, but I also never thought it would go to this level either. And I agree. She needs to apologize to at least my brother and sister-in-law. Commenter 2 says, your wife took their stupid high school rivalry thing way too far. There are plenty of people that I can't stand in this world, but I would never go as far as to call the police on them short of an actual crime or safety issue. This is a big deal, and while I don't know what you should do about it, personally, I would divorce over this. Hope replied, I don't know about divorce right now, but I think therapy together needs to be a must. If this is who she really is, I don't know. It's like you said, this was taking a rivalry way too far. Commenter 3 says, how do you forgive someone who ruins your own brother's marriage for something this petty and stupid? If anyone did that to my sister, I would never speak to them again. Lovely Polly says, how did you find out about her role in getting your sister-in-law deported? Did she tell you she made the call? Hope replied, when I got the call from my mom that my brother was in jail and my sister-in-law was getting deported, I told her. And she said, yeah, I know. I called the cops. Commenter 4 says, so you're basically going to ignore what she did to your brother? He has a drug arrest now. And for most countries, that limits the type of jobs you can take and eventual promotions at jobs he does qualify for. He can no longer travel to a host of countries, including his wife's home country, the United States. You said he took you on a trip to Sweden. Sounds like a guy who enjoys seeing the world to me. Your wife ruined that for him. His spouse can no longer live with him in his own country. He can't go to hers. But you are okay with the deportation thing? I could not live with my husband knowing he did that to my sister. Why are you so okay on behalf of your brother? Update 1. Holy hell. This really blew up. I will post a real update soon, but your comments and messages are very appreciated. Things are quite tense at the moment. But tomorrow we have agreed upon a sit-down. We'll update letting you all know what happens now with us and the situation. As of this moment, my sister-in-law is definitely being deported. Update 2. So there's a lot to catch up on here. First, my sister-in-law is on a flight out tomorrow. There is nothing that can be done at the moment to keep her here. She now has a stamp on her passport that says expelled and a 10-year ban from the entire Schengen area. The immigration officer my brother spoke to said that it is possible for the ban to be reduced, but that is the current official time given. The American embassy was also notified about this. My brother is a wreck. He was able to briefly visit my sister-in-law in the holding facility, and she gets to call him twice a day, but that's it. They don't know when it will be possible to see each other again or where. If he is unable to go to the United States because of his arrest, they may agree to meet in a mutual country. My sister-in-law has family in the Philippines, so that may be an option for them. Many of you told me to tell him what my wife had done, but honestly, in his current state of mind, I just can't do it. It would be the actual tipping point for him. I know that this probably means I will have to either never tell him or accept that when I do, it will completely destroy our relationship. Secondly, I did tell one family member. My mother came to visit to discuss my sister-in-law's deportation, and I ended up telling her what Emma did. She was furious, and she insisted that the both of us talk to my wife. Well, my wife and I had already agreed to have a long talk today about the matter and what this meant for us. I felt a little more grounded having my mother there. And then things just took a freak turn. My wife sat down, seemed really calm. She let my mom say what she wanted and just sort of sat there nodding and had her hands folded. When my mom was done talking, my wife pulled out her phone and handed it to my mom. She showed her messages from my sister-in-law on Facebook telling my wife how she planned to have a baby in order to stay and get paid maternity leave. My mom is extremely sensitive to this sort of thing because her own mother used her as a pawn, so to speak, many times when she was a child, mostly to get money from the state. So my mother went from being extremely angry at my wife to actually siding with her. She said it was better this way because my sister-in-law's motives for having a baby were misguided and that she couldn't believe my brother was going to go along with it. So with my mom on her side, my wife began to lay out my sister-in-law's shortcomings and how she was creating a toxic environment that would drag us down and any potential child they would have had. She also said that it was unfair how she had to go through the process of paperwork before coming here, and my sister-in-law was resting on her laurels and scheming to cheat the system, something that really pissed my mom off towards my sister-in-law. Valid points, all of them. However, I wasn't going to let it slide that she had obviously had ulterior motives, such as being jealous of my sister-in-law. I asked her if she would have done any of this if my sister-in-law and my brother weren't spending so much time with me. If my sister-in-law wasn't cooking dinners for me, taking photos, or entering the same competition as her. She admitted that all these things definitely contributed, but only served to underline the disdain she already had. I told her that no matter how you cut it, she had effectively ended their marriage. My mom decided to jump in and say that my sister-in-law and brother were at fault because they did not get their situation in order. My wife seconded that and said if my sister-in-law had taken the time to file papers instead of planning trips with me or being busy playing housewife to someone else's husband, she wouldn't be in that situation. To quote, maybe she should have been taking care of herself and her own instead of trying to play housewife to someone else's husband. Well, I could take care of my family just fine. And if she had any doubts about that, now she's in the clear. I will admit, the points about her being afraid that I was going to be implicated along with my sister-in-law and brother when it comes to pot, I understand. That is a valid fear to have. They smoke almost every day. My brother almost always has something on him. My sister-in-law should have done her paperwork. She should have made sure her visa didn't expire. I will not argue that. She probably should not have said she was going to have a baby specifically to stay here. But I know that these are solid excuses that are being used in conjunction with something else. I know that if my sister-in-law was some fat, ugly slob, my wife would roll her eyes and let them be. If my sister-in-law was not Asian, if she couldn't cook, if she didn't take pictures of us together for her Instagram, my wife would just chalk her up as another annoying person who smokes too much for her taste but was ultimately harmless. And I know if I had just gone to Sweden with my brother that my wife wouldn't care. But because I went with the woman who was playing housewife to me, it was a serious offense in her head. I waited until Mom left to tell her all of this. She didn't deny it. I also told her that this whole situation had let me see a side of her that honestly scared me. I told her I wanted to begin couples therapy together, or there was no hope of this continuing. She agreed, and we both began to research therapists in our area. She apologized for not talking to me about calling before doing so, but she has not apologized about my sister-in-law being deported. She also said if I wanted to tell my brother and sister-in-law that it was her, I could go ahead and do that. But I'm not going to. 1, they are distraught enough. And 2, it seems like her coming to claim victory one last time over my sister-in-law to her face. So that's what's going on. I'm hoping to post an update on our progress when we begin couples therapy. The issue for me right now is rebuilding the broken trust. Also, as far as things with the family go well, my mom is on her side. And should my mom decide to tell other people in the family, she will definitely make my sister-in-law the bad guy in the story. Aside from my brother, I think most of the family would be on Emma's side. The second story is from Am I the A-hole subreddit. It was posted by OwnTask7932 and was titled, I told my dad I won't call his wife my stepmom. Am I the a-hole? I found my biological father 6 years ago through a DNA test, but that's a long story for another day. 2 years ago, I finally got the chance to meet him for the first time. We live in different countries, so I stayed with him for 2 weeks. We were so alike it was almost creepy. We liked our food the same way, could practically read each other's minds, and our lives had all these weird similarities. We even had matching tattoos, the same breed and color of dogs, and the family resemblance was uncanny. He had recently gone through a divorce when I visited. I also have a younger brother, who was 15 at the time. Fast forward to now. My dad had been planning to come and visit me, but he kept putting it off for 2 years because he wanted to wait until my little brother was old enough to be independent. My brother is now 17 and in his last year of high school. Since I left, my dad has been living like a college bachelor. He's fallen head over heels for at least 5 different women. The first one turned out to be a Russian prostitute who ended up locking herself inside a beer fridge at a liquor store during what seemed to be a psychotic episode. The police had to escort her out. She was also only 30 years old. I was 33 at the time. The most recent girlfriend before this one, he got engaged to her after only a few weeks. Then he ended things just as quickly after finding out she spent every afternoon at bars with her daughter's ex-husband, who also happened to be a drug addict. Now, there's a new woman. She's 30, and I'm 34. At first, I didn't think much of it because I assumed it was just another long-distance relationship. Then I found out my dad was planning to rent out my little brother's room while he stayed with his mom for a month, and someone suggested this woman needed a place to stay. Within days, they were sleeping together. A few days ago, he called me to tell me they're already talking about getting married and having babies. My dad is in his late 50s. I said, that would make you almost 80 by the time your kid turns 18. He just laughed and kissed her. Then he started talking about bringing her with him when he comes to visit me. That's when I got really upset. I told him, Dad, I really need you to think about what you're doing. He'd always talked about coming to visit me a few times before eventually moving here. It was already going to be difficult for him to get residency, but now he's talking about adding a new wife and a baby into the mix, which makes it even more complicated. He already delayed visiting me for years because of my younger brother, and now I feel like he's starting an entirely new life. I told him that if that's what he wants, I don't think I can keep investing emotionally because I need to protect myself from being hurt and let down again. I also told him that if he marries her, I'll never call her my stepmom. I'd probably joke that she's my little stepsister with a really weird relationship with our dad. So, am I the a-hole? Verdict: mixed reactions, leaning toward not the a-hole. Relevant comments. Commenter 1 says, the dad is worse than a teenager. OP is acting like the adult. Hope replied, I always feel like that. Thank you for validating that. Commenter 2 says, is your dad hoping you'll sponsor him and the fiancé du jour for residency of the country you live in? Hope replied, no, he's funding himself, but I am his sponsor. He would come on a parenting visa, so if he marries her, technically, she would be a stepmom relation. Commenter 3 says, not the a-hole. You kind of might have to let him go, which is hard, but clearly he's shown how much you're worth because I hate to say this, but if he wanted to, he would. Also, where's your brother's mother? Or couldn't he have taken your brother with him? Or left him a few days with someone else? There are holes, and he could have shown more effort. Maybe you're not alike, because he sounds very careless about your feelings. Hope replied, that's the thing. My dad could have either left my little brother with his mom, or even brought him along. I actually talked to my brother's mom, and asked if he could come visit me. She said yes. and even said she'd help pay for the trip. I also asked if she'd consider letting him stay with me for the summer, so I could help him get into a trade and send him home with some skills. She said that might be a bit too long, which I completely understand. The thing is, my little brother is already staying with his mom for the last month of summer anyway. He doesn't even know that he might end up coming home to a new stepmom. Commenter 4 says, "Not the a-hole. Reading your post, it seems your father never mentally matured. He acts like he's 20. He flies from flower to flower like a bee, thinking there are no consequences, yet you are one of those consequences. I understand your need to disconnect from him, but the fact is he isn't emotionally available despite being 60 years old. I can see exactly what might happen. He'll keep having children as if he were 20, instead of strengthening bonds with the children he already has, children who are grown and need a stable relationship. Talk to your father and explain that he needs stability. Right now, he's signing up for at least another 20 years of parental duties. And you're right, poor unborn child, having an 80-year-old parent when they turn 20. That's why I never had a second child. I felt it was disrespectful and unhealthy for a child to have an 80-year-old parent when they're barely 20. You're likely happy to have reconnected with him, but it seems he isn't bringing you the peace you hoped for. If necessary, distance yourself from him before he hurts you again. His immaturity will end up hurting you. If he truly wanted to reconnect with you, he wouldn't have waited 2 years to come see you. And now that he is coming, he won't even be available to spend time with you because he's bringing his new chick along to have another baby. All I can tell you is that sometimes you shouldn't force things. If your father doesn't understand the importance of that blood bond, then create your own family, one you will treat with the love you wish you had received. Start a new family that will never lack your love." Hope replied, "I actually did just that, and thank you for your comment. I have 4 kids, I'm pregnant, and I have an amazing husband. We've been together for 14 years, and we've built a wonderful life together. Both my husband and I have complicated relationships with our parents, so I know how lucky I am to have the family we've created. I'd be lost without them. I think I'm just going to focus on everything good in my life and be grateful for what I have." Update 1. It's been about a week since I made my original post. He's still completely head over heels for her. Then again, my dad is incredibly stubborn, so even if he started getting bored, I think he'd probably still try to make it work. I think what hurts the most is that this isn't really about his girlfriend. It's about everything that could come after. I've told him over and over that I'd really love my little brother to come visit too. My hope was that if Dad ever decided to move here and my little brother liked it, maybe one day he'd want to move too. Of course, his mom still lives in the States, so he might decide to stay there, and I completely understand that. I just wanted us to have the chance to be closer as a family. I was more than happy to sponsor my dad while he visited, and my little brother too. But I'm not willing to sponsor someone he's known for maybe 3 weeks. Girlfriend, fiancé, wife, whatever she is at this point. I didn't tell my dad what to do. I made it clear that it's his life and his decision. I just told him I don't know if I can keep getting my hopes up only to be let down again. I also couldn't keep my mouth shut about how uncomfortable the age gap makes me. Maybe everything works out and they're happy together. I honestly hope so if this is the person he chooses. But I can't ignore that I feel like he's making some huge life decisions incredibly fast. And those decisions could end up changing whether he ever visits or whether we ever get the opportunity to spend more time together as a family. Update 2. 3 weeks ago, my dad started dating a woman who's younger than me. He was absolutely head over heels in love with her. Well, 3 weeks later, he called me while he was out having dinner by himself and said, "I can't stand that woman. I almost kicked her out last night." He went on to tell me she's been drinking heavily and has become belligerent toward him. Sadly, it sounds like the relationship is already falling apart. The second I hung up, my husband and I did a little happy dance and then gave each other a big hug. Not because we're happy he's hurting, but because we've been so worried this relationship was going to stop him from coming to visit us. I'm really hoping that once this is behind him, he'll finally focus on making the trip to meet his grandkids and the new little one on the way.